All right, welcome back to the Perform podcast, episode 32 or 33, I believe. But today I was going to go through another little weekly PD on a presentation that we did probably a couple months ago, just around the systems approach to building and rebuilding change of direction. So this is a consideration both from the aspect of a reconditioning or a return to sport athlete, but then at the same time, which needs to be have a bit more consideration, a bit more thought processes prior to injury. Just the general on-field training, conditioning, development is just having a bit of a thought process and a progressive mindset to try and clean up certain things before injuries happen. So rather than just going through general change direction drills or agility drills or whatever it might be, starting your early off seasons or whatever your general prep phases will be, and having a bit of an eye for what we need to look out for and developing it up from there. So there was just a couple key goals that we try and have. So the first one's obviously, and it's a general principle in strength and conditioning where it's like, number one, reduce the risk of injury. Number two, maximize performance. They will go hand in hand, and sometimes one comes in front of the other depending on the very small percentage of situations. But for the majority of time, you are pushing for minimizing the risk of injury. So having a key consideration that whatever we're doing is to drop that risk. Number two is maximize the general physical development. So from there, trying to actually create some development within the athlete and some general capacity and some quality over time, so which will then allow them to then create a bit more of a transfer. So when they go to more cognitive style drills, it's much more transferable, and the rate at the demands of the perception action coupling is they can actually match that up because they've got the physical qualities to go aggressively and go at someone that's coming at 5, 6, 7 meters per second at them and then make a decision, versus having this body that can't actually make those hard, fast change directions with good ground contact demands, good transfer with upper body, all that kind of stuff. And they're mistiming and misfiring, which is generally where sometimes this bridge can happen in high rate, high speed, high demand, game match demands, and a physical body that can't match that, or a physical body that's crumbling under fatigue quite quickly because they don't have the capacity. So before we get into it, it's obviously important just to note the CMAS. So this is something that's popped into literature a while ago in terms of off the back of the SMAS, so the Sprint Mechanic Assessment Score. And it's a handful of key movements, parts of the movement that you can then start to look at and have a close eye on and score against to then create a bit of a risk assessment in terms of someone that's doing change of direction. So this is on, you can search this up and find this, you can download this PDF, there's a full article on it. And this is a great tool for a lot of practitioners and coaches and everyone to just be aware of and see this. This isn't a presentation that has any images or anything like that, but digging into that a bit deeper, and we'll do one at some point, but matching up some images and some actual pictures that you can see, because been quite lucky in terms of the amount of, like, I'm down at a field session or with a team or something at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then with that, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of reps that you get to see. So over time, you get a stronger eye. So initially, it's quite hard to see, but you just need that repetition. So getting some images, getting some pictures in your head, and getting some ideas of what that actually looks like. And then from there, having some awareness around like a bit of a principle that I like to use in like skill development, and even return to play as well. So like an isolation, integration, intervention kind of mindset. So isolation in terms of like the individual's physical skills or even the individual movements and breaking those apart. And that can even be something like where there's individual drills that are focused on multi-directional ground contact stiffness. So stiffness through the floor on a multi-directional angle. Could be things like skater bounds or whatever it might be. And then another isolated physical preparation drill could be something to do with the trunk. So it could be dowel overhead. It could even be like something with a step and a wood chop. Things that are just managing the trunk lateral flexion. So we can work on these individual skills and these individual qualities that are breaking down, the knee, how much knee flexion, the width of their leg or whatever it might be. And then from there we can start to integrate into more physical development, so more of like your change of direction drills. So being able to view someone change direction, see one of those things that might be a bit of a potential issue or a skill issue or a physical development issue, and then putting things into their program to match up with that and focus on that and make them aware of that and talk about that and then video it, review it, and improve that. And then from there, start to push volume and capacity and push that new improved patterning. So then from there, because it's great for a change of direction drill to look really good once or twice, but when you look at accel decel demands, change of direction demands, collision demands, the volume of those is just as important in being able to handle the capacity of accel decel change of direction and all of the fatigue that comes with that as well. So we need the physical qualities, but we also need the capacity side of things and the repeatability as well. And then an intervention, so in improving the current drill. And that might be just like using your constraints-based model to improve that individual drill before laying on some more cognitive demands. So just a few little change of direction progressions that we discussed, and that was just like I'd just like to simply break things up into the different patterns. So we have like a deceleration pattern, we have a cutting pattern, so more of like a sidestepping. You've got a curve and you've got a turn. So you could integrate a lot of change of directions into those 4 patterns. And then you've got other things with like shuffling steps and other bits and pieces like that. But from a general early stage principle, you can kind of break it into those 4. And then from there, looking at the individual skills of those. So one thing with deceleration is being able to get into early stance. So getting more heel to mid-foot plant before we're then rolling through to mid-stance, then getting off on late stance. So you can watch a lot of people as they go through change of direction and they just try and shove into their toes, or they just don't trust that more absorption early stance kind of position. So then there might be drills, could be isometrics, could be step through jumps, it could be decel hop progressions or certain things like that. Just things that can influence it from a skill or a physical development standpoint. Your penultimate step, your plant leg, trunk flexion control. So you can have a bit of a read throughout and just see all the different skills and progressions and thought processes, and then they kind of diverse out a little bit more and there's a bit more detail into each one. But if you can kind of break up a lot of these patterns, and even like your cutting, so your plant leg, your swing leg that comes through, your lateral flexion control over one side, and then your upper body trunk turn as well. And then even at the same time, while you're looking at these movement patterns and skills, is just keeping that mindset of like, not just looking at it from the frontal plane, like looking at it from the from like side on, looking at it from frontal plane, looking at it from, there's even transverse plane that's being considered as well. So just looking at those from different patterns and different setups to then get a good idea about how these are happening. So like if I'm viewing deceleration and I want to look at flexion control, I'd probably be looking at from the front to see what's happening. If I want to get an idea in terms of how their early stance capacity is and their penultimate step and everything, might watch that from the side on view, just get a bit of a better idea. So looking at those individual pictures and views, and then pulling apart those skills and then developing those from there. And then just the last slide that I'll just show you today, just to wrap up the little bite-size weekly PD, but just looking at change direction program variables. So a couple different key things that you can edit and alter, and this can be, you can initially design your programs based off the pictures and the rehab settings or the reconditioning settings or the groups that you've got or whatever it might be. But then you can also move the pendulum within the session itself. So getting an idea, like we might be having a deceleration drill with 5 to 10, 15 meters of speed, but there's a little bit of a fear element, or there's a bit of a skill element that's not breaking down. So we're going to shorten that up. And even I had one yesterday where we're doing a wide drill or a cutting drill and a change direction drill. One leg's doing really well, the other leg's struggling a little bit. So we just shorten the entry velocity, and then from there pattern the skill, then increase the velocity, and then that can then become more successful. Degrees of turn, so how much they're cutting, or whether it's a cut, a turn, or whatever it might be. But just that variable and that demand in terms of the deceleration demands and what happens there. The change directions per rep, so the cognitive demand of multiple actions and the fatigue element, and the connection piece of being able to go into a turn, into a cut, into a curve, and adding up different drills together to make it more of a bit more capacity demand, or even just a more dense kind of drill. The session density, so that can be the individual exercise or just the whole session of itself. The intensity, And that's certain things like testing, racing, whatever it might be. So they'll obviously they'll alter the intensity of it. And then the cognitive processing load. So more of your agility or just your reactionary kind of drills. And at the same time, and that's kind of what I spoke about before, is just keeping in mind that risk perception, especially in reconditioning settings, but even not in reconditioning settings where there's athletes that you might get them into a decent change of direction drill and there's a bit of hesitation, there's a bit of risk perception happening there. And that's a huge program variable as well, and a consideration that will alter your execution, the way you're coaching and editing the drill. So hopefully this is just a little bit of a very fast, very quick snapshot on a base little template for change of direction. There's a few more pieces in a bit more slides that I won't show you today, but it's just a bit of a starting point. So if you can go back to just having your clear goals in mind, keeping this in mind, so doing a bit of research on your CMAS and what that looks like and what do these pictures actually look like. Having a bit of a framework to develop your session and progress your sessions and progress your drills and the demands. Having some kind of framework. So I've just built this out myself, but you could do your own one and you can build your own one and you can have different names and different qualities and different whatever it might be, but some kind of framework like this that is less about what the actual drills and the exercises are, and it's more about the physical qualities and what you're trying to change. If you can put down those physical qualities, and that can then you'll pick different exercises based off experience, lever lengths, all that kind of stuff, and make your own decisions from there. And then keeping in mind the key variables that you can edit both when you're writing your programs and then also on the fly as well.